Right, I'd like to call the April 21st, 2026 Municipal District of Tabor Committee of the Whole meeting to order. You have an agenda in front of us. Do you have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I can accept the agenda as presented.
Those in favor? Oh, before I carry on, I just should note that Councillor David Torrey is joining us online. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Yes, I'm in favor too.
Thank you.
I did mention Arnold's, and I don't know if he has it on there, but just about the Stillwater project, I had a bit of a discussion with the county of 40 Mile. We could talk about at some point.
So for upcoming agenda item, you mean? Like on a different day?
Perhaps, David, could I follow up with like the actual committee members? MDU Tabor.
Yep, sure. Yeah, whatever, however Arnold thinks is the best way to handle it, for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, and now next, declaration of conflict, pecuniary and or conflict of interest.
So I have a pecuniary interest against with grazing leases, as I am in a grazing reserve that leases 1/4 of land from the MDU Tabor.
Thank you. Okay, we'll continue on to the confirmation of the March 31st, 2026 meeting minutes.
I can give you the motion to accept the March 31st, 2026 meeting minutes as circulated.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. Okay, first on the agenda is the Regional Fire Service billing approach.
Yeah, I'll let Director of Community Services speak to this particular memo.
Thanks, Carlos. So in front of us today, as requested by council, there was a request to bring forward a fire services billing agenda topic. Administration has gone to do some research, some benchmarking, information gathering from the industry itself to help facilitate the conversation, to add, hopefully add some additional information, background content. We did present as part of the memo, as part of the discussion, our current state, and that is with respect to billing, and this is very specific to billing for fire services. There is a breakdown of points. I didn't plan to go through the entire memo, but the breakdown we gave was the situations that we bill currently. And that includes for on MDU Tabor roads, whether it be for provincial highways, whether it be for incidents that include, when someone is at fault, and if there is any insurance coverage, if there's anything being addressed with regards to insurance coverage currently. We do bill by Alberta transportation rates at the MDU Tabor as well. The benchmarking information that we provided to the committee for consideration today includes 8 questions that we identified in the memo. We tried to gather information from other comparable municipalities. We did focus on rural municipalities that are equivalent, as far as size, population, other criteria that we use to help narrow down our research. You will see that there's a summary of results provided, and that is that essentially most municipalities do invoice for fire service response. They also invoice on numbered highways, primarily invoice responses for insurable properties. So that is something that was identified in our research. There was a variety, we identified it as various approaches. You'll notice is the language we used. That just identifies that there was a variety of approaches. Really, there was nothing that narrowed down that said that there was any kind of a consistency in the industry as far as how it was approached. So as far as whether or not they invoiced directly to uninsurable properties, that did vary. And responses were primarily using the Alberta transportation rate, is what we found. Various approaches to calls billed for other types of calls. So that includes like alarms, railway, power companies, MFR, bolt rescue, just to list a few of the other items that we do bill for currently, or that are billed for currently across the province. And that it's very clear that there is a discretionary element for councils to review invoicing and have some discretion with regards to who's invoiced and who isn't invoiced, if there is a concern from the public or from anybody that is invoiced as a result of a fire response. The last statement is just the various approaches to invoicing workloads. We did look at some of the resources that are available as far as processing of invoices. So there is some comment made as far as our process goes at the MDA Tabor for processing invoices currently. And the research that we had found from other municipalities, really, there was an increase in workload, but it is comparable with cost benefit as far as the additional revenue component does play into it. So we did provide some predicted, and this is to provide us from 2025 some predicted revenues that would have been if we had changed our billing to include MD of Tabor roads, so insurable losses on MD Tabor roads and insurable losses for fire response, without using the 4-hour minimum that we have at the MD of Tabor currently. And so you can see that there are some unknowns in this. There are some knowns with regards to which properties would have been insurable, because that wasn't part of our process. So it's just to give the committee some idea of just how much potential revenue could exist as a result of some of the changes that we've identified through our research. And so I won't go into any more detail, but we do have a recommendation from administration, recognizing that to use the term standard, recognizing there is some consistency in the industry with regards to this, and that we've recognized that there is a consistency in invoicing for all motor vehicle collisions and for fire calls related to insurable properties and insurable properties and assets across southern Alberta. And we did identify that if there is a request to look at changes, we would have to amend our fees and charges as well as our fire services bylaw. So just to open the floor for a conversation.
Thank you. So at this time, any comments or questions from council? Go ahead.
When you say there's been a standard defined, does that also go into how they're providing the billing to, are they direct to the insurance companies? Are they, how is that navigated? Because I think that's important. That's actually probably the most important part of it for me is finding out, how that's done. So that if there is no insurance, that there is no bill. And if there is insurance, that there is a bill, but it's that it's easy for the person who suffered the loss not have to navigate everything and allow the insurance companies to navigate it with the MD of Tabor.
Okay, I will add that the standard reference to a standard, it was identified that based on the industry research that we had conducted. So I would use that term loosely as far as consistent approaches across the province. We tried to identify whether it was a consistent approach across our region. And so I will. Chief Cote is also on the line. He wanted to be part of our conversation. And if there was any questions, I'll take a run at that as well. We are recommending that the invoicing remain the way we do it currently. Whether or not they're invoiced directly to insurance did vary throughout the research that we did, but certainly that is absolutely what we're here for feedback from the committee. So, if that's something that the committee wanted to establish direct billing to the insurance companies and only for insurable losses, that would be feedback we could take back.
Just following up on your comment, recommending that you continue with the invoicing practices. Now, are you referring to the rate schedule as well, that there would be no change from what we're doing right now, or just the way we're invoicing and who the invoices are sent to?
Just the process that we use to process the invoices. Yeah, we use the Alberta transportation rates currently. So that would be part of the deliberation today as well. Could be part of the deliberation, but just the process.
Okay. I appreciate the detail that's gone into preparing this. It was good to have a retroactive look at what the impact would have been if this had been in place in 2025. I think that's very helpful information. What I would suggest council do is that this be referred to council for further discussion. If this is something that council is interested in moving forward with, I think that it would be appropriate for us to also reach out to our partners, Vauxhall and Barnwell. It would make sense for all three municipalities to move forward lockstep together in whatever the change is going to be, if in fact there is going to be changes that are going to be made in the way we've been billing for emergency services. Another discussion I think needs to take place if this is referred to council is around what we do with the funds that are generated from this. In my mind, this is an emergency services function. It would make sense for us to take the funds that are generated from this and make sure that it goes right back into a reserve account for the replacement of apparatus throughout the region. I don't think we should be looking at this as a revenue source that's going to offset operating costs for the municipality as a whole. That's my perspective, and I would certainly encourage council to go along with that and refer this to council for further discussion to move in that direction.
I would agree with almost everything you've said, Councillor Johnson. There's also, I think it's important to understand if there's going to be extra administrative muscle needed for the billing, that also needs to be captured within the fire services budget. And so I think that's important too, because I think there will be some extra. And I would hope that there is, because I don't want to put the burden on the people that have suffered the loss. So I really believe that it needs to be the billing party's responsibility to talk to those insurance companies and have it done that way, instead of putting that extra burden on the people who've already suffered the loss.
No, I agree. It would be appropriate for these invoices to be sent directly to the insurance companies. When you're on the scene when the service is on the scene of an incident, that information should be collected before the team leaves the scene, so that the paperwork can follow right afterwards.
My question is, could you explain how the billing works now for fires or callouts that exceed 4 hours? Whether it be in the MD of Taber, Vauxhall, or Barnwell?
So it was outlined, so the first 4 hours, of course, 4 calls that are on MD of Taber roads. Sorry, just for clarification, are you just specific to MD of Taber roads?
So maybe I just need to seek clarification from Deputy Reeve. Are you only wanting to address motor vehicle callouts? I didn't think so. I thought you were also interested in all calls. Is that correct?
Yes, anytime there's a call for service, an invoice follows to the insurance company, whether it's for an MVC or if it's for a fire that requires suppression.
Right.
So that would be translated into removal of the 4 hour minimum. We would then invoice.
So I'll just pause that. Sorry, let's just go with what we have now. So if a fire exceeds the 4 hour minimum, what happens then?
After the first 4 hours, invoicing is as per the Alberta transportation rates.
All right, if it's a house fire.
Oh, to the ratepayer, to the property owner.
And it comes from, for Barnwell and Vauxhall, does it also just come from the Municipal District Regional Fire Department?
I will defer, Chief Cote, you're online.
And if we don't have an answer today, it's fine. I'm just trying to wrap my head around whether we're ready to refer to council or whether we need a further committee of the whole discussion.
I believe they would be responsible for their invoicing, although I'll refer to Chief Cote to clarify.
Good morning, council. Sorry I wasn't able to be there in person today. I'm a little under the weather and thought maybe not bringing that into the room might be handy. So I apologize for not being there. But yeah, currently, as Director Serena had said, we invoice after 4 hours for fire calls. If it was an MVC on our MD roads, we would invoice at that point. Most MVCs do not last for 4 hours, so I would say normally there's no invoice for an MVC on an MD road. On a highway is different. We bill Alberta Transportation, who then goes after the insurance companies, so we bill for every MVC on a highway. As for a structure fire, again, the first 4 hours are free. After that, we send an invoice. And I should clarify, that's any fire, grass fire, structure fire, anything that is over 4 hours, we send an invoice for after the fact. When it comes to Barnwell and Vauxhall, we haven't really had too many calls that go over that 4 hour range since I've been here. So as of to date, I would say I've not sent an invoice to anyone in Barnwell or Vauxhall.
Thank you, Chief Cote.
So just seeking a little more clarification here, I'm wondering, so when that motor vehicle collision happens on a provincial highway, does the province then send the invoice to the insurance company or the vehicle owner?
I would need to seek a lot of clarification on that. I'm unaware, but my assumption is the purpose behind us invoicing Alberta Transportation or the province was they had a little bit deeper pockets than the fire departments did, and waiting for insurance companies to figure out who was responsible for an incident. This allowed the fire department to get paid the money that I guess was kind of owing to them, and then the province would seek reimbursement through I believe the insurance companies to pay back their coffers. That's how it all got set up back in the 80s or the 90s when they started that. But I do not know the answer if that gets invoiced to the individual or the insurance company. I would believe that it's the insurance company, but I'm not 100% on that.
So if it's possible, I'd like to seek clarification on that question, just so I understand what the process is currently on provincial roads. So then we would have a better understanding of how to go forward with ours.
Are you just wanting to know what transportation does? Or does council have a good idea of what they want? Like,
So
if we want direct bill to the insurance company, let's give us that direct, if we even go this route.
yeah,
After it goes through the process, let's give us that direction.
yeah. So in fairness, initially I was thinking, yeah, we need to flush this out at another committee of the whole. But in respect to Deputy Reeve Johnson's comment, I think you're right. It needs to go to council so we can make a motion to determine if we're going to consider changing the policy from the first 4 hours to direct billing. And I think that's probably the initial motion that has to be decided. And it would probably be good, and I know most of the people are not here from when the fire department was set up, but I believe that was kind of one of the selling features to setting up a new fire department. But when I look at the research that's been done, perhaps it's time for a reevaluation. And how old is our fire department now? Is 2016 was our first year, I believe. It was before I was on council, 2015 maybe.
I think it began in 2016 and went live in 2017, I believe.
So it's due time to have a review. So I concur with Deputy Reeve Johnson that this should go to council to decide if we should have a review of our billing structure. Now that we have the basic information, then we can go from there. I think it isn't able to be probably decided in one meeting, but at least we can get the research that they've done quite a bit of it for us. Councillor Reynolds.
So currently, if I recall, the monies from they get billed out now, it goes right into the Boxer Regional, or the Regional Fire Service? The money's for the fees for billing, where does that money go right now?
That would go into general revenue currently.
So that should be going into the Regional Fire Service maybe. But we can flesh that out further as we go. Thank you.
Just to ask, with regards to that clarification on that, would that be all billing that we do for response? Then would go into, is being proposed or the idea was thrown out there with regards to going into a reserve to support apparatus replacement or capital replacements?
So I do think that's part of the future discussion, but we should decide how we're going to, if we're going to change or remain status quo. So I do think we probably need to flesh out a motion to have a council determination on whether we're going to have administration do any more work on this.
So I would move that we refer this to council for further consideration. And part of that discussion when it gets to council is also going to focus on the need to reach out to our partners and make sure that if there's changes, we move into this together. I'll let Lace do her wordsmithing to come up with something that makes sense there.
So perhaps Deputy Reeve, the part 2 could be determined once council sets direction, right?
Maybe just while she's working on that, is there any interaction with the town of Tabor Fire Department on the provision of service where that department comes out and provides support or assistance for incidents in the MD? Because if there is, then that's part of the conversation that needs to take place as to how we would compensate the town of Tabor Fire Department and recover those costs as well. I just don't know the history or details there.
Chief Cote can certainly add to the conversation. We do have a mutual aid agreement with the town of Tabor, and we do support each other in certain calls. And so, but Chief Cote can speak to that. He's had experience in those types of calls. So.
Yeah, so when the town of Tabor comes and helps us, usually Chief Munch and I have a discussion after the fact, and essentially his question is asking if we're going to send an invoice to the ratepayer, and if so, they would provide us with a bill for their costs. To date, I have not sent the town of Tabor an invoice when we've responded within the town, and he has not sent me an invoice for a response outside of the town. No, like I said, normally for 4 hours, we don't usually send an invoice to the ratepayer, and therefore he hasn't sent us an invoice as of yet.
Go ahead, Deputy Reeve, do you have?
I appreciate that. I guess just the one observation that I've had, it's my understanding that the town of Tabor does have a practice for charging ratepayers within the town. And again, it would make sense for there to be consistency between how that practice is applied throughout the region.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that, should they provide an invoice to the MDA Tabor Fire Services for supporting us with a mutual aid call, that invoice would be forwarded on to the ratepayer or insurance company if that was the direction of how we're moving forward.
Marie.
Just a question, I probably should know the answer, but when we provide mutual aid to other municipalities, do we bill, or there's no billing, that it's just a mutual agreement? Or refresh my memory how that works out, please. Thank you.
The MDA Tabor has thus far provided those services free of charge. We assist our neighboring municipalities, kind of a I scratch your back, you scratch our back type thing. So we have not been invoicing our neighbors for any calls that we've gone to, and vice versa.
Okay, thank you. That's how I thought it was, but just double checking.
I think the only exception to that would be if there's a larger scale disaster within the province. If there's apparatus or service that we can spare, there's some cost recovery there.
That's correct.
Just a question with regards to the proposed, the two policies that were referenced, sorry, the fees and charges bylaw and the regional fire services bylaw. Would there be value in a draft? It may take some time for us to get a draft, but would it be valuable to bring a draft for consideration at council?
Well, if this goes ahead, those would be required. I think the first thing that we need to do is have the conversation at council, make sure that that direction is being sent or set in place. And then if that's the case, we would expect amendments to the bylaw and the fee schedule to come back.
Yeah, I believe the amount of work that's been done to date will be sufficient for council to have a discussion, with the exception of the couple of clarifying questions that have been asked. Do you feel that is the case? Yeah. Lace, did you, or Arliss, just checking it? Okay, great. So Deputy Reeve, I'll just. Go ahead.
Okay, so with the, thank you, Lace, for preparing that, but yes, with this motion here, I would move that the Regional Fire Service Billing Approach Memo be presented to council for further discussion and consideration. And further, that any proposed changes be provided to Municipal District of Taber Regional Fire Services municipal partners for feedback prior to adoption.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the motion? You ready to vote? Those in favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda, lands planning and development, the economic development update.
Yeah, so council, community services, Bryce, and our economic development coordinator, Caitlin, is here to present economic development program update. It's before committee of the whole, primarily because it's a relatively new program, quite new program within the MD of Taber. So as part of that, we're providing some initial updates just for council's informational sake. So I will let them present this memo.
Thanks, Arliss. Yeah, as mentioned, we did provide in the memo, we did provide an update on November 2025, and so that at that time we were able to introduce our new community economic development coordinator, so Caitlin Barr. So Caitlin's here with us today, and she's here to take some questions as well as part of this this update. To just get started and to go through the general memo and the general approach. We will take note that we did mention on here 5 months, but I think it's a little closer to 6. I could be wrong, but it's in a short time. We have we provided a couple of updates on our program, and Caitlin's been working diligently at trying to develop a lot of the foundational elements that go along with our economic development planning. And so the first thing that I would like to walk through is what's been developed as a vision statement or approach. We've essentially tried to adopt a 3-pillar approach to economic development. So I won't go into each of them individually, but you can see that we've outlined a connect, explore, and build approach to our program. And essentially to include really critical elements of economic development that include engagement, just making sure that we're learning from our experiences, doing good solid analysis on each of our individual program components, and set stage for a quality plan for us for long term. Building out a program, we will be involving a number of components within our long-term plan, which includes our partnerships. And that includes making sure that we align all of our partnerships well with the vision and strategy of the MD of Taber with respect to economic development. Caitlin has developed essentially a strategic approach to economic development, which I find is quite valuable in trying to communicate our approach. So you can see that in the chart, if you refer to the chart, if Arliss could just roll to the chart there, we're providing an April chart for 2026, and that shows some of the previous work that's been conducted, how it contributes to some of the ongoing work that we're doing with regards to our partnerships, our projects with regards to our economic impact assessment, or economic impact study, I guess is the terminology we're using. Some research we've done on incentives that we're here to talk about further if it's part of our discussion. A business survey, which is one of our next items, which is really critical in progressing and going forward, including implementation of our incentives. The Taber Table project, which has been identified as a real success story here in the region. And then later looking at, we've identified 2027 even as our aim is to develop an economic development plan. And essentially that includes value proposition and some strategic planning that goes along with that. So I know that's really quick, but you can see how that outlines with a strategic approach where we're looking at items leading into the next steps in our program and ultimately into program development. I didn't plan to go through each individual item, but you can see that we did provide council with some background information as far as completed projects, some of the completed participations that we've had. So part of economic development is promoting our region and being present in the industry and showing our value proposition to the community. The list of the participations that we've had currently is listed, as well as some future ones that we have upcoming with regards to the CPMA. We just attended EDA as some development for our program and our staff and ourselves. You can see the tax incentive benchmarking that was also included in here is to try to share with council and the community some of the information that we've gathered, trying to develop again some of those comprehensive program components for our program itself. We did recognize some learnings and essentially identified that our next big step forward is our business survey. And again, to get out to the community, to work with all of our businesses to gather that baseline information that's needed to move forward. So again, I did mention Caitlin's here today as well to take some questions. So we're here to have that kind of discussion and gather feedback from the committee. So.
Thank you. So council, at this time, we can go over the plan or ask some questions. I know I have a few questions for Bryce through to Caitlin, if that's okay. So my questions are quite generic. I appreciate the updates, keeps us in the loop. This position is relatively new to the MD of Taber. So and whether it's yourself or Bryce, I'll ask my 3 questions first and you can order them in however you want. So I'd like to know, is this economic development position at the MD of Taber what you expected? And are local people or potential investors reaching out to you? And in general, do you think this position has opportunity for growth within the MD? So I can ask them again, but I just think you might answer them all at once as well.
The context of some of the questions. So the first question was
if it is what you expected, like, are we meeting economic development needs, or are we just still building the framework? And then the second question is local people or potential investors reaching out, and just, do we see that this position has growth potential in the MD?
Position as in a,
Economic development, not as in Caitlin's initial position.
sounds good.
And I'm okay with whomever should answer. It's
Well,
just- it's
I'll
quite
start.
new.
I'll start in the sense that I think based on what we presented and kind of where we're headed, it is in its growth. It's in its growth stage. It's we're developing the fundamentals. We're developing all. We mentioned the pillars, so you can see we're at a very strategic level of identifying what our long-term plan, and where we're going to invest our time and energy and promotional components of our program. And so I would suggest that does say that we're definitely in our fundamental, our growth stage. And our investors reaching out, I would say that just in the formalities of economic development, we have continued to see RFIs come from the province, and we receive communications from our partners. I will let Caitlin speak more to it, but we have put a fair amount of energy through our participation, not just in the conferences that are listed, but just in connecting with our partners. So Caitlin wants to add a little more to that as well.
Yeah, so in terms of industry reaching out to us, we, like Bryce had mentioned, we do get requests for RFIs, stand for request for information from investors, and that's that comes through the province. It comes through Invest Alberta, which is a arm's length agency through the provincial government. In terms of like direct outreach from investors, we haven't had too much of that. At least since I've been here since October. The idea being exactly what Bryce said, there's an opportunity there for growth so that we establish our information a bit better, promotional campaigns, make it a bit more strategic, and see sort of how we land in terms of getting interest. I think it'll also be important for us when we talk about promotion is to understand where we are best suited in terms of sectors, because then we can direct our promotional campaigns in that direction. So for example, value add ag or manufacturing. And that way we can market ourselves directly towards those sectors, and then with the hopes that they will reach out to us directly more often.
Maybe I'll take the third question. It's as far as like future, where we're headed, what potential do we have? I think as far as the next steps go, some of that is yet to be seen, but some of the next steps, getting out to the business community, develop that baseline. We're extremely excited about what that'll bring as far as new information and what's needed as far as our direct connections with our businesses, with the businesses in the community. But then the next step was strategic. It's actually a strategic planning exercise with the municipality to say, here's what we want, and here's where we're going to go and where we're going to invest our energy based on some of this information that we brought to the table. But it'll be just that next step that'll develop that business plan, that actual economic development plan. So some to be seen, but it is definitely as part of our next and future steps.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for those updates. That gives me a broad perspective. And I think the responsibility actually falls on this council to decide what are we willing to commit as far as what do we have ready? Do we have services ready? Do we have incentives ready? Are we interested in incentives? So as much as I appreciate all the legwork, and I think this is the basics, council's going to have to decide what are we willing to showcase to bring, what are we putting on the table? Because, I mean, I've had that question, well, what can you offer? And I said, well, a great place, great people. And I thought, that's probably not enough when I see what some other municipalities are offering. And I've never been one to race to the bottom either. So I appreciate the work that's been done. And I do think council has some responsibility in this economic development role. John.
So I have a couple of questions as well. One being is without a business license, and I'm not suggesting we do that. without a business license, identifying businesses within the MD of Tabor can be somewhat challenging. And the way I see business is there's multiple sizes of businesses, but a lot of the smaller businesses are farms as well. And I don't know that we need to touch base with them as well, like all the small, medium, and large size businesses. And so how do we, I guess, identify all of the businesses within the region without a business license? And when we start to develop them, are we going to create a directory?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to start the conversation, and there are some next steps on this as well, right? We did talk about a business survey being part of our next steps, so we will be trying to identify a comprehensive list of our businesses. We are aware of a lot of the associations that do represent, like I took note of the small, medium, large farms, and some of the sectors, some of the specific ag sectors that are represented quite well by the associations as well. And so we will be investigating those and as we move forward, and I will 100%, there will likely be some learns as we go along that possibly we need to add to, whether we just work with associations or we connect directly to certain producers that have requested contact with us and that. So we'll be learning along the way, although that business survey will be essentially a project enabling us to connect with all of our businesses and determine that. So I don't have all the answers to that currently because we don't have a business license, as you said. So
Can I add to that?
absolutely.
Yeah, so I echo what you're saying, is that we don't have a comprehensive understanding of who's operating now. And then when we think about business licenses, it's also the MD isn't unique in that it doesn't have business licenses. There's most rural municipalities do not. But I have had this on my mind and have been inquiring with other economic development officers to understand how they operate. And there's a couple of different models that have been used. For example, the MD of Greenview operates a regional business license program, although it becomes tricky because it's mostly retail related. And the same thing with the Southwest Regional Economic Group. They in a similar way, they have a regional business license program, but at the same time, it's your electricians, it's your plumbers, it's things like that where they do operate within the region. So yeah, it's tricky when it comes to the ag sector. And something on my mind too is how do we keep it updated all the time? For every year, a business license, you'd need to or in some cases you need to register every year. That puts an administrative burden on these business owners. How do we make sure it's valuable for them and we're not just taking their information and not providing them a service for it? So there's lots of layers to this. We talked about the business survey, but the other thing that I think will help us get a start is the economic impact study. I'm hopeful that the consultant will be able to give us a better sense of who's operating now so that we can get a good foundation to work from.
I attended a previous Economic Developers of Alberta conference, and one of the things that I did hear there was I can't remember, I think it might have been Flagstaff County that used a strategy of, I don't think they have business licenses either, and so how they identified businesses by using known businesses to identify unknown businesses.
Okay.
So they're using that type of strategy, and as long as they know that it's not a way to taxation, they're more than willing to share their unknown businesses' names.
And we can think about our participation in the chambers as well as a great opportunity to fan out and understand like all of these businesses that we're not quite aware of, but would be helpful for us to understand a bit more.
maybe I'll just add too, just real quick, is that we do have a couple of projects. Caitlin mentioned the economic impact study, but the siting for the industrial parks project this coming year, or sorry, 2026, will likely bring additional information to the table as well. So we have some really great projects in 2026 that we're really looking forward to, and as a result of those projects, they'll help feed us the information that can have that next conversation is what our hope is. So.
I guess a follow-up to that is going to, I don't know if I asked this before, but will they be identifying locations that could be beneficial to, will this survey be identifying locations that currently aren't MD of Tabor owned, so that we have an understanding of who we should be talking to for future consideration on lands that could be developed? There's a lot of what ifs there.
Sorry, the business survey?
The survey we have coming out on identifying business or areas that could be developed.
Oh, the feasibility.
Feasibility.
Yeah.
Will they be identifying locations that might not be ours and under our control, but identify those so that we understand where we might have to make negotiations with the current landowners?
Yeah, it's so we are in the early stages of the project, but I will say that, you know, in citing feasibility studies and citing, they'll take into consideration when there's opportunities, you know, for municipal lands and that, but their task is to look at where is best suited. Like it's going to be where is it best suited in the MD of Tabor for a number of different reasons and a number of contributing factors, right? So I would say that we will definitely take note for sure of that question, because it is absolutely relevant. But as we go forward, we'll be looking at that project to identify all of those contributing factors, right, including land and ownership, right?
And I just wanted to comment on the business tax incentive benchmark report. It was very interesting information. I realize that's a lot of work, but I think those are things that I, as a counselor, need to have at the tip of my tongue. So I appreciate that it was in a compact format. Sometimes I am looking things up to pull my own stuff together. So I appreciate that it's all in one place. Yes.
I'm just wondering if anybody else was confused by the title of the business tax incentive benchmark report, because as soon as I saw benchmark, I thought it was in reference to our assessors.
Noted.
Noted, yeah.
That didn't bother me. Okay, is there any other questions from council, and is there any other comments from administration?
One question that I had was, you talked about industrial areas and developing them. And I thought that was an urban, like in Tabor kind of thing, or Vauxhall or whatever. Can we do it in rural too?
You can do it in rural too.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, an important consideration is the servicing of those industrial properties. It depends on the type of businesses that you intend to service as well. So
Would it be in a place that doesn't get annexed? Because it's no point in us doing all the work and somebody else getting the benefit eventually. I mean, that's the question that goes through my mind.
yeah, I can understand that perspective. That being said, services are a key part to those types of development.
I would add they probably likely include consideration for partnerships as well, in order to, you know, consider them. And
That might be a better way of going at it, partnerships.
I have a comment. This is David.
Yep, please go ahead.
Sorry, on my track, I'm having a hard time finding a little button for a hand up. But anyhow, it was a great experience to be up at the convention last week in Kananaskis with our staff. And anyway, it was just great going to the sessions and being together. But there's the thing I want to talk about, there's quite an excitement in Alberta and in Canada in general about related to, you know, business development. And so I think this is a perfect time. I don't think we could push fast enough to get ready for the amount of investment that wants to come to Canada and will come to Canada. We just got to decide whether it's going to come to the MD of Taber. And so I think I'm not sure the process, if there's motions that we need to put into place to allow staff to investigate different opportunities or, you know, how that process happens. But I think as a council, if we see things and understand things, we need to bring them forward and then give staff the authority to go do their job and find out if there's opportunity. I'm not sure if data centers would be a good thing or a bad thing for the MD, but it's very clear that they're coming to many municipalities. So, like, I'm not even sure, like I say, it would take work, but I don't know if it requires a motion to get that ball rolling to specifically investigate. And I think staff is going to do this anyway, but if we need to, you know, try to direct energy into a direction, whether it's renewables or data centers, like I say, not to make them happen, to find out if they would be good for the MD of Taber.
Thank you.
I do think a lot of the questions around questions and answers, I would suggest, probably through strategy development, will come quite soon. It is identified as a future, but, you know, as we move into, not all the strategic items happen, you know, right after each other. So we get things going in parallel as well. So it'll likely happen quite quickly. I would hesitate to put a timeline on it currently, because we do have a business survey that we identified as a priority right now. So, you know, as we get that developed and then we get into the field to implement, we're likely going to be in front of council with some recommendations for those for developing strategic planning and such activities. And so we're looking forward to those. And I'd probably leave it there. If council or if committee would like to make a recommendation, certainly we could see bring back additional information on making that happen, I guess.
Can I get to that?
Sure.
Yeah, just to echo what Bryce was saying, I think between the economic impact study, the feasibility study, and then our business survey, we'll be able to help us set a direction so that we can be more clear when we come to council to ask for, I guess, your direction. Sorry to repeat myself, but so Councillor Tory's talking about renewables or data centers and things like this. And I think once we've completed these first two studies and survey, then we'll be able to say, for example, come to council and say, through the information that we've gathered, we've noted that our top sectors are renewables and tech data centers. Can you provide us with direction on going forward with these topics?
Hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, hypothetically.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. I echo Councillor Tory in that we probably can't be ready fast enough. And I think if something came to your doorstep, though, come to us. Don't just wait till the studies and all the lines everything's finished. Sometimes those opportunities just show up and maybe not, but I too, you know, when I'm following these economic developers throughout Alberta, there is a sense of excitement. So we want to be ready for them as well. So with that, I think we would want to recommend this update to council so that it can be entered into council minutes. Is that what your preference is, Arliss?
Yeah, it's just.
Can I just say one more thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry.
No.
I was just saying, like, I think we're sending some people to Toronto, aren't we? Like next week or something.
Yep.
And so, like, if John meets an investor and they're interested, I want to wait till these studies are done. I want to know how do we, you know, make a connection with these investors and, you know, bring them here and find out. And I think that we're sending the right people. I think John knows how to network with people, and if he comes up with something, I don't have to wait 6 months or a year to find out how they fit into our MD. So I just want to understand as councillors the process of doing that so that we can get these things on the agenda.
I agree with that, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, if somebody's interested, you're not gonna wait till the paint's dry. You're gonna continue to work with them and bring them here. The little wet paint on your hands doesn't hurt.
If somebody comes to the MD of Tabor wanting to invest, yeah, we're not gonna say just wait a few months.
And we
If that- if
recognize,
that's what needs to be said
yeah,
today.
and we recognize that and we appreciate that, but I think what I believe all the members of council are trying to iterate is hopefully we will be able to support you in facilitating that investor interest, not just waiting till the policies are done. I think that's what the members of council are trying to convey. Not that we think anyone from staff is closing a door. It's just that council is a partner in this economic development as much as staff is.
Excellent.
For our current businesses and potential businesses.
Yeah, and I guess all I was asking, like saying, this isn't any kind of a comment. It's about what staff is willing to do. It's as counselors, how can we get it on the table? If we do make connections, just so that it gets to council. It's a very technical point. Do I do some kind of a request for information or a request for a motion? If we, meet people and we want to get it to council, is that what we do? We just give it to you, Arnold, and say we want to discuss with this investor, or what are the steps?
Well, we've done that in the past, and when investors come directly to council, they're told to go back and talk to staff. So my thought would be, first step would be refer them to us, and then to get support from council, we bring them to council based on what support we need from council. Unless, if council wants to short circuit that, we could just tell me, and then I'll put them on council's agenda, and we'll all learn together at the same time.
In the past, when the possibilities have presented themselves, that is exactly what's happened. So if they've come to a counselor, a lot of times what happens is it then goes to staff for them to communicate. Because really, we don't have the expertise to deal with all the intricacies of bringing this developer or whatever they're trying to do into the municipality. That would be administration's tax. At some point, they might have to come back to council with some concessions that may need to be made in order for this to come forward. But in the past, I know that there's been a lot of work done in the background that a lot of times we don't even realize, because when you bring these forward, it's just working in the background as we continue to do our business as council, and that's how it has to function.
Okay,
Ideally, if they're wanting to invest, they're developing, so we want to get them through the development process as quick as we can.
and we know that oftentimes investors are feeling out different things, and sometimes it's relationship building, which I think is why we sent Councillor Tory to the Economic Development Conference, that we're going to send Councillor Turcato to Toronto, and we'll have different councillors at different places. Sometimes opportunities arise, even when Councillor Peters was at the South Grove Conference, he had made a connection with a potential funding partner. So there's lots of value of going to these events. Okay, so I would propose a motion to have the April 26th Economic Development Update brought to council, reviewed at council. I'll see if there's a,
You tell me.
what would you prefer?
Yeah, we had, picked the committee as a platform just to provide
Okay,
our
so
updates.
just, you want us to receive it? I'm
Just to
good with
receive it.
that.
I think so at this point.
Okay.
We do have some next steps going to be coming forward, and you will have
Okay,
economic development back at the table very soon, so.
so go ahead, John.
I can give you a motion that we receive the April 2026 Economic Development Update as
Thank you.
circulated.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Any further comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, We'll vote. Those in favor?
Thank you.
That motion is approved. Thank you for the update. It is exciting, and it's exciting to have this much engagement, and it's good information for all of council to see our municipality as a whole. So we appreciate what's happening and the ball that is now rolling. Thank you. Okay. Lot sales agreement review and draft policy.
So this is part and parcel to some of the Grassy Lake. Well, it's being considered because Grassy Lake is the most recent. Grassy Lake subdivision is the most recent subdivision that's been completed, in which we're preparing for lot sales. But we also are wanting to propose a lot sales policy in an effort to try to be a little more efficient in terms of processing potential sales and whatnot. So it is in the form of a draft policy for council discussion and feedback, and any other detail Bryce can add.
No, I just emphasize the term modernization and also efficiency that Arliss mentioned. So those were the two focuses that we identified through just experience of selling lots in our last couple of subdivisions that the MDA Tabor has developed, and we bring it forward with a number of the bolded sections are the key areas that have been addressed. And so if we in this setting, this is our opportunity to discuss. We can certainly just go one by one, or if we have just accept questions. Brian Piers is here as well to help with some answers to any of the operational aspects of it if they come up in the conversation. And but really it is intended to just help facilitate the process and make it a smooth process, and make it a process where we we can ensure that we're making best use of both the clients, the purchaser, and the municipal resources that go into the sales of our lots.
So I really agree with one of the proposed changes here, which is to allow for, once we've set lot prices for whichever hamlet or whichever location it's in, that administration can now go ahead and sell those that are having to come to council. Since we've already set the lot sales price, it just slows down the process in my mind. I would assume that it probably speeds that up and gets it in the hands of the developer quicker, whether that's a private individual or a company looking to develop there. And so I really support that idea. And I think that would be really beneficial.
Any other questions? Yes.
I will note that that is the goal, and in residential lots that we've got coming up in Grassy Lake, that is the goal. There isn't a few items with regards to duplexes, some of the more intricate, more complex situations where we will still be in front of council. We would expect there are a low percentage of the lot sales, but it does give us an opportunity to bring some of those unique aspects of development back to council for consideration, and so that is part of the process as well.
So this proposal that you're looking at is for all lot sales, not just in Grassy Lake, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
Just one more comment. There will be any hope for efficiency would likely be lost if the intention is for potential purchasers to continually make offers below listed prices. So any efficiency in actually establishing a policy would be lost if that's council's intention to consider those. If they were brought, I would suggest council consider it in the context of policy revision. So you look at discounting everything and not just one-offs.
I think considering the economic climate that we're in right now and the demand that's there, that would be a step backwards if we got into that practice. I had a conversation here during the week with a fellow that has brought a number of lots online. They're all spoken for. There's a waiting list. If somebody cancels, he calls the next person on the list. It's just that the demand is strong. And I was shocked at what kind of price the lots are going for.
And I very much agree. It's just, it's more so in response to comments that were shared at last council meeting.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, that definitely speaks to a well-presented draft lot sales and development policy and lot sales agreement with a lot of work that's gone into it. So with that, we would look for a motion to recommend this policy to council.
I can make that motion.
Okay, so Councillor Peters refers the draft lot sales and development policy and lot sales agreement to council. Any questions on the made motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Those in favor?
In favor.
Motion is carried. Thank you for the work done on this. Oh, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay, we'll resume our meeting.
I know with this, the land sales policy that talks about cultivation and grazing, so I don't know. I guess if you see me get up and walk out the door, I guess, you know, I'm excusing myself. Try to announce it though.
Yeah, if you choose to, just wave at me and that way it can be recorded in the minutes. Okay. We had a tabling motion to bring back the sale of lands amendment and we had a motion to bring back the MD land sales policy. So I will turn it over to administration, who may turn it right back to council.
I believe this was council's resolution to have further discussion today on this particular topic.
Okay, thank you.
So I did make that tabling motion, and I appreciate that administration has brought forward the Vulcan agreement, which I think has a lot of merit. But that, I guess, isn't for me to decide. That's for council to decide.
Yeah, so my concern with the land policy refers to, and why I said I would not speak in favor to this draft lands policy before, was that since we extended it to 10 years, giving leaseholders the ability to have 10 years to lease at that rate and not make it available to the public, I felt that then at the end of 10 years, they shouldn't have the privilege of it going to the appraised value. I believe it should go on the market. I was in favor of it at 5 years, so there's some conflicting thoughts for me. So I'm not in favor of the proposed policy that's on the table. And I can get behind the Vulcan one in that if it went to tender, with appraised value being the floor, and then giving the current leaseholder the right of refusal, I could support this motion then, but it would be good to have further discussion, or if there's no other discussion, then we will continue on. Lane.
If the intention is to subject the sales of these lands to a competitive process, then there's no point in even going through the appraisal. Just throw it wide open, let the market determine what the price is going to be. But I think that that's certainly contrary to the discussion that we have had up to this point and the direction that has been provided to administration, and certainly the signals that have been sent to the public that have been following the council discussion on this. I wouldn't be in favor of going in this direction, and I would be voting against a motion to refer this on to council for further discussion in pursuit of that direction.
I think another change that's been made that makes me hesitant to go to an appraised value is the fact that previously in 2025, we approved a policy that would then not allow for the sale of lease lands to another party. And so that also allows for speculation on both ends. And so that speculative component is what I'm concerned about most, is that because now it's allowed to be sold, that now there can be speculation. Because if the policy stays at assessed value or appraised value, there would be a speculative component to this. And I don't know that benefits the MD of Taber. It doesn't benefit the current leaseholder either. The only one it benefits is the speculator. And so unless there's something there that only allows for it in this fashion like Vulcan has, or if that's not plausible, then allowing for the process to only be available to leaseholders, the current leaseholders. And if they sell it, then it goes to market. So if that lease is now transferred to a new owner, that benefit doesn't go to that new owner. It's only to the current owner. That allows for family farms to continue. And it rules out speculation, especially with the 5. And I kind of disagree with the 5-year. I think it needs to be longer than that. And that also rules out that component of speculation, even by the current leaseholders, wanting to purchase this, then sell some of it to pay for their purchase. And so I don't think 5 years is long enough. We've given them a 10-year lease, and I don't think 5 years is long enough for that restriction.
Deputy Reeve.
I agree fully with Councillor Turcado. 5 years is not long enough. When I brought that forward, I suggested it should be a 10-year period that we're entitled to exercise first right of refusal on buying back that land. And I'm certainly prepared to move in that direction for adding another 5 years to that. It wasn't my decision to shorten it up to the 5-year period. I agree fully.
Can I say something?
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think John makes a really good point. Certainly my intention in bringing the ability for leases to be bought and sold is not so that the future leaseholders, it's for those leaseholders, current leaseholders, that are just not going to be able to buy this land. And there will be a few of them, because the difference in their investment is dramatic to actually buy the land, is so that they can recoup the long-term investment that they put into this land. And so, yeah, I'm definitely not trying to make this so that this becomes a giant speculation process. So it's more so that, because some of these lands are actually very integral to the ranches that they are on right now. Like, they're not fenced separately, there's no water separate. It's so that those ranches can be made whole at appraised value, and if they can't, and if they're going to lose this land, that they at least can recover some of the damages that are going to come from losing part of a piece of land that's actually integral to their ranch. So yeah, it is a very good point you make, John. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
So with that, I don't know how to initiate this, but I would suggest a change then to allow for only at the time of signing these leases, that only those leaseholders would be able to receive the appraised value. Anytime it's sold, the new owner would then have to go to a competitive bid process.
But with that, John, I think that I like the model that we've seen, is that it gets appraised, but that even if it goes to competitive bid, that the leaseholder still gets first right of refusal at the final bid price. Is that what you think?
I guess I could live with that. I don't know that it's best, though. If we're looking at the best interest of the municipality, there's still a speculative component to that. So even with first right of refusal, a lot of times you don't receive the highest bids, because all you're doing is setting a price. And so some people will stay out of that because some of them have invested a lot of money with their accountants and their lawyers and deciding what they can bid, and then only to find out that the person who currently holds that lease that purchased it from someone else now has the opportunity to just bid $1 more. And so a lot of times, large operations, local operations, won't take the time to do that, because all they're doing is discovering price for the municipality. In an open process, that price is discovered real time.
No, it is a good point, for sure. I'm just trying to think through, like, the intent of this land 100 years ago was to bring people to settle in those areas. And that whoever is willing to buy these leases, but then, do they get a little bit of a priority? I mean, Vulcan actually gives it, even the priority to the neighboring, if the first right of refusal is not taken, then they let those with adjacent land. It's, I guess, just the thought of not trying to break up the economics of these areas, but to honor the fact that but that is mainly for those current leaseholders, I agree. But some of these leases might get bought by the leaseholders near them because they're already in the area. And it just seems to me that if we feel like we have to drive to a full competitive bid, that it would be nice to still allow the leaseholder the first right of refusal. Anyway, it's just a thought. I really want to protect the current leaseholders. I'm not so concerned about secondary leaseholders.
Further comments on that? I mean, to me, that if we went with that, I also could live with that the people who purchase the lease have to go to a competitive bid, but I could compromise with Councillor Tory and say that they can get it at first refusal, the guys who purchased the lease, because we're still getting to a current market price. And I do feel that's a bit of a compromise. It also still gives some surety to the prospective leasehold buyer that they still could access that land. Because our intent was about the current leaseholders. I know it makes it more complex for administration, but that would be a way to do it. I am a little reluctant and don't know the background. I have the Vulcan lease in front of me on the, it's on their sales procedure but then there's land less than 30 acres and land that's more than 30 acres. The neighboring clause, I don't see in the more than 30 acres, just the less than 30 acres.
Yes, and that was a long time ago I read through that policy. So I'm not pushing that policy. I'm just saying that we want to protect the current leaseholders, and if we make it impossible for the new leaseholders to have a chance to buy it, then we've taken away their opportunity to recoup the investment for the last, however many years that they've been in. And so I think if we feel like, and I agree with you, Tamara, like if these go to the end of the 10 years, the Vulcan model, they gave people the one-time opportunity to get the stuff at appraised value. And then if those options weren't exercised, then they used this new policy of appraise it and then bid on it and then give first right of refusal. I think it's still fair. And anyway, I think it will bring us very close to market value on these lands.
Just clarification that anything, the larger parcels identified with Vulcan County do go to, the appraisal is the first step, but they do go to market.
Yeah, that's what we're saying, that the piece that I was just trying to clarify, but it's already been done. David acknowledged what I just wanted to make sure he's good. We're good.
Maybe just for a second, just for a point of clarification on when we're considering the County Vulcan policy, one item that I think
No, we're not. Like we're just perhaps utilizing some of their information. We're working from yours.
And one thing that is identified in there that is unique is just that their sales. That their leasee, when they put in an inquiry, they have the opportunity prior to the initiation of a sale to do the assessments. So the appraisals on the land, they can get an average of 2 appraisals, and that is prior to the initiation of a sale. So just with respect to when you talk about the affordability aspect for leaseholders, whether they want to buy, that is prior to initiating a sale. And it's at their cost, just to make sure that's clear as part of it.
So if I follow correctly, what we're talking about now is that current leaseholders would be eligible to exercise a purchase on the property by going through a competitive, or not a competitive, through 2 appraisals and the average price of those 2 appraisals. If the leaseholder has sold their lease to somebody else, the purchaser of that lease then would be subject to a competitive sale process and have the first right of refusal on the highest bid through the competitive sale process, correct?
That's my perspective, yes.
And the other piece is that we would then be moving from 5 years for the MDs to exercise the repurchase of the property to a 10-year period. So all 3
Let's
of
just wait
those,
till, David, are you back?
yeah, he must have dropped off and then rejoined.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm
Okay,
listening.
great. I-
Thank you.
Yeah, just want to make sure, because there's some important stuff being discussed.
But
Sorry.
that's the position that we're talking about now.
That's what's, no motions are on the floor, but that would be something that I think leads to a compromise that still protects the current leaseholder.
And if those are the 3 principles that we're talking about, I'm prepared to support the motion that we refer this to council on the basis of those 3 principles being given consideration during the next council meeting.
Okay, I think for the sake of administration, we should have motions to those effects, or they could be included in there. Lane, we don't have to make separate motions if everyone's prepared, but I do think they're quite unique, and that way administration is clear on what we want. So then we would start by, let's just quickly, so the definitions we have no issue with. I'm on the red line copy, so if everyone could get to that. So then on 5.1, yeah, that one, attachment B. So on the principles number C, maximize the overall benefit as a whole. No one has any issue with that? Just looking for head nods because we're going to make some changes.
Sorry, I gotta get David back up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah, no, I'm here. So what, say again, the last bit here? What you're looking
I'm
at?
just on the red line copy one, David, and 5.1 principles. I believe this was a motion that you made earlier. So it says land transactions must aim to maximize the overall benefit to the MD as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that one was in there. So I'm just kind of going through what the red line or new ones are and then figuring out where we're going to make changes. Okay, so then now I'm on F. Okay, current tenants of the MD may be permitted. So I'll just read it out so David can, I'm on F. This is an addition. Current tenants of the MDT may be permitted to purchase dry grassland at a dry grassland appraised value, and the MDT may register to caveat against MDT lands in respect to any agreement subsequently entered if and to the extent such agreement is capable of registration. Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that, but I'm not gonna lose sleep on that one.
Yeah, and I think one thing that that these ranchers are going to want to consider is nature conservancies and stuff, and that does bring investment into the area to preserve grass. And so it would be nice to flesh that out a little bit, like that little part at the end that says to the extent agreement is capable of registration. I certainly didn't, that wasn't my thinking. I think we can do this, and I want to figure out a way that we can, like, our intent as an MD was to preserve grass, and if there's some people that want to preserve some grass, I think we absolutely are obligated to at least give that a chance with all the verbiage that we use with the province to get this land. And I'm not saying it should be all the land. I'm just saying if people want to preserve this grass, and they're still got to buy the land at an appraised value, I just want a mechanism for that land to be locked in and to be valued as land that's locked in, that it's not going to be able to be speculated on for irrigation or for housing or anything else.
John?
I agree with some of what you've said there, but once it's in private hands, they can bring in they can put a conservation easement on it if they want. I don't think that's a responsibility of us, because I don't know that that's something that our ratepayers and taxpayers are looking for us to do. But private landowners can do with what they want on their land, and they can put whatever conservancy they want on it. But I'm not in favor of the MD of Taber doing that.
Well, it is what we said to the province we would do to all of this land. And so not even being willing to let people to do it on some of the land seems a little bit extreme. That's how we got this land.
We got them the same way as most other municipalities have, and no other municipalities put any restrictions on them.
Okay. So to both of your points, I don't think that this policy restricts or allows those things to happen. It's quite that's another option. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve.
Except that Article F in here now, if it's approved with that in there, it would allow this to happen.
I just don't think that that should hold up this policy, speaking specifically to what a nature conservatory is or isn't.
Yeah.
I think that that's another conversation in my mind that just gives provision, and I believe that was the intent when someone brought this forward.
Okay. From a policy perspective, would verbiage such as like the MD encouraging residents or people that purchase land, if they want to do that on their own volition, that can be encouraged? But I don't know, maybe that's just word salad. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the actual details of what this particular paragraph is going to state is what will flow out of the discussion when it comes back to council during a council meeting. But it's my understanding that we were including this or considering the inclusion of this because some people are wanting to purchase the land and have the appraisal based on it remaining in grass. And there is going to be a difference in price that the MD receives for land that must remain in grass versus land that would be able to be cultivated and or irrigated. And that's what this clause is addressing. We've got to have further discussion on how this would be fleshed out. I don't want to see us throw it out altogether at this point. It needs to come back for further conversation during the council meeting when we debate it formally.
John?
I'm just not sure how legally binding this could be should somebody purchase the land and want it to remain as grass and then decide that they want to develop it for something else. I don't even know if we have the capacity to be able to stop that other than through our policy. So on year 11, should they choose to break this land, do we have any repercussions or availability to be able to, unless we're putting a conservation easement on ourselves? And I don't know that the ratepayers and taxpayers of the MD of Taber are willing to suggest that we receive less money for this.
I would suggest that for how much land we'll use this, there's enough people in the MD of Taber that do want to preserve prairie that it will be a balance. It isn't going to be very much of this land but we do want to preserve some prairie, and so, like I say, with the legal stuff, I agree, John. We've got to learn more on anyway. That's why I brought it up. Is that I would like to learn more about it, but this has got to be an option in my mind, and we approved it as a council, and so we pursue it, and we try to get the right information.
Was there another section to
Yeah.
review?
Gonna- So when I see C with a red line, I just want to make sure I'm at, oh, sorry, I went too far ahead of you.
Just a formatting. Just a
Okay,
formatting.
just a sec.
That's just a mere formatting issue, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Surplus land. Okay, I'm good till 11.1. I don't know how others feel. Yes, go ahead.
So on 11.1, this is where we would need to state that it's going to be current leaseholders only would be subject to this particular process. And then there would have to be an additional clause inserted here that states what the process would be for people that have purchased the lease from an original leaseholder.
Yeah, so I didn't think under 11.1, so I'm just trying to make sure it's in the right place. Excuse me. I agree with each of the comments you just made, Deputy Reeve. I'm just trying to make sure it's in the right place. I wonder if it isn't 12.1 C. They sell the lands to the tenant price.
I'm just, sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, I think that the principles are, we have some understanding as to what we're trying to accomplish rather than have council sit here and try and wordsmith this right now. I'm wondering if the
Okay.
administration just needs to come back with a revision when this comes back to council, and the revision needs to reflect these principles that we have talked about.
So even a resolution outlining those principles
Okay.
would be great.
Okay. So,
Do you want to make the
So I guess the one revision I'd like to speak to then is that the current policy and the way it triggers the land sales would only be available to the current leaseholders. And when I say current, I mean the ones that are going to sign in the near future. And then any secondary or tertiary purchasers would then have to go through a competitive bid process and I guess allow for a first right of refusal to that leaseholder.
for the leaseholder on record?
For the leaseholder on record as being the second or third, not the original.
Okay, so the current, sorry,
go
the
ahead.
current leaseholder, what's the principle with that?
What's in front of us currently.
Yeah.
So,
And it's only the second, or there's only subsequent leaseholders that would be subject to the new addition, which is a competitive bid process, whether that's auction or live tender, and first right of refusal given to that subsequent leaseholder, not original.
So for those situations, would there still be appraisals obtained to set the floor? And then after that, it gets opened up? Or is it
So
going to go
initially
straight
you
to
said maybe we didn't need that, but I always feel you should have a floor. You know, I worry that if you don't have a floor, I listened to what you said and thought, okay, that really does arrive at market, but are we willing to relinquish if we don't get at least the base price? Because
Okay, I'm going to put this up occasionally to make sure I'm following.
David, do you get to see that, or should we, I don't want to make it as a motion yet, because we're just,
Okay, then just look at this, these
Okay.
as points.
Yeah, I can see it.
okay, perfect.
You guys are doing great.
Okay.
I guess point number B is where I'm seeking confirmation.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
that works for me.
Lane, does that align with what you were thinking? Counselor Reynolds?
I think most of this policy kind of more or less talks about grasslands, so maybe I'll excuse myself.
Okay, thank you. So I actually have a point of clarification I need. So this would not be for community pastures, and it would not be for, I guess I should ask it this way. Would it be for MD lands that are currently tendered? This is for the transitional leases. Or are you giving the people who have tendered recent leases in the last 10 years this same option? And I'm okay, I just need to make sure we know.
This references,
Yeah, no, on all lands. Yeah, like I'm just asking the question. I have no issue. It does give those folks who bid at a market rate a point of privilege, but again, we never were about taking things away. Ernie, how do you feel about that? Counselor Tory, I don't know if you can weigh in.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like they invested in that land, not in infrastructure, but in bidding on short-term leases. And I'm fine with that. They're the ones in that area. But if you want to go the other way and just sell these at an appraised plus standard and give them the first right of refusal, I'm fine either way. I don't have a lot of history with the tendered lease.
The only final point I'm wanting to clarify, are we going to also change the buyback provisions for the MD from 5 years to 10 years?
Yeah, I'm open to that, but I just really want to make sure we know what what this land sales policy is directed at. Go ahead.
clarity, and maybe this was a miss on my part.
No. This
The
is,
land sales policy addresses all grazing lands and all cultivation.
okay, that's what I just want to make
All
sure,
the three grazing lease types.
with the exception of community pastures.
No,
That was passed in the grazing policy with all land, including community pastures are.
Okay,
We need to exclude community pastures from it. Yeah, I think that's a message that we need to send, that community pastures are not going to be subject to this process at all. They're going to be retained.
but they wouldn't have to trigger a sale period, right?
right,
And
They wouldn't have to trigger, but if it's in there, they could trigger it, and we don't want that to happen.
but then they would have the ability to buy it, which community pastures already are in the business of buying it. As I'm just thinking this through,
Yeah.
Council would still have to determine whether it's surplus or not too.
That's right, council. So for me, council of the day would have that ability to say, no, it's not for sale, because we have to deem it surplus. So that's where council comes into play. And so the current council, whoever that is, would have to come to that realization on which is the best benefit for the region, including for the community pastures, whether it's surplus or not.
Lane?
And I appreciate that council of the day would have to make that decision. But I think it's still important that we send a message to the public and to the community pastures. This land that is under community pasture management is not going to be subject to the future sale. It has been raised and pointed out that at least one of the community pastures has only got 11 members in it. And if you've got 11 members that are able to trigger the purchase of it, why would we allow that land to be sold for the benefit of 11 individuals and taken out of public domain? Right now, there is some benefit that the public receives from that, in that they are able to enter upon that land. There's some recreational value. As soon as it goes into private hands, that's gone. And I would not be in favor of that at all.
We also get, oil revenue off of this land, surface rights revenue that would then end as well if we sold it. It's just something to think about.
So just to follow up on that, right now there's 11 members in that pasture. It could evolve over time that there's going to be even a reduced number. And if it goes down to 4 or 5 or however many there might be, they could easily incorporate, exercise the right of purchase under our policy. I just don't like the idea of going down that path at all.
Well, there's a side of me that would rather never deal with community pastures based on what circumstance we've dealt with through this. And we know community pasture models have a composition, a variety of them have a composition of privately owned lands, MD owned lands, and provincial owned lands. So I don't know, unless we saw a reason to retain, why, and that's why I was asking the question. I wanted to be clear on this because, initially a past councillor had really been clear that if a community pasture wanted to buy the land, if they were to dissolve, the words were, if a community pasture dissolved, then that land would come directly to the MD of Taber. It would not become private land, because why should they benefit? Or why should they have the opportunity to sell? So I'm a little bit mixed on this, but I just think right now, based on our ongoings, community pastures have exercised incredible privilege and right in our MD. And whether they have 11 members or 19, still a small number based on the number of people in the MD. Go ahead.
So one of the things that has come out during the conversations that we've had is that there's a need for us to work with the community pastures and open up the process so that there is increased opportunity for new members to come in and make use of those pastures. Right now, we haven't addressed that, but I think that that's probably the next step that we need to initiate. Let's have the conversations with them, make sure that there is an open process that provides for new members to come in and broaden the base of individuals that receive the benefit from the community ownership in that land.
So I appreciate. Go ahead, David.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, David.
This idea of a community pasture being able to dissolve, I've never even, thought about that or wondered. I'd certainly like to understand, how the act would treat this before we made a decision. Like I say, I'm fine if, I agree with Lane, but I also agree with the fact that maybe some of this land they would want to buy, and it might give the MD some needed, investment. But if if a community pasture can then dissolve and its members own the remaining land, that would make me pretty nervous. I'm assuming that's not the case. It would be nice to know what those rules look like.
Yeah, so I appreciate the comment that we would like them to do things, but we've heard from members of this council, past council, and current leasehold members that it hasn't been easy to exercise the right, and I'm not sure how the MD of Tabor exercises that right. I mean, we were told by Mr. Tolsma, who represents the old man leaseholders, that if someone doesn't get in to a community pasture based on being eligible, they can take them to court. I don't know that the MD of Tabor wants to get involved in that argument. So in some ways, I would rather not have to deal with them. But I also feel that if we get the right price for the land, I'm just not willing to accept anything else. It would have to be the same policy. And an appraised value would be fine with me, but I just struggle. This is a whole nother entity, and which we knew would happen from lands. We'll never be perfect on these policies, but that's why I asked the clarifying question.
The dissolution piece is already, like, it's already been dealt with by council, specific community pastures, so there's no questions to be answered unless it's just reminding you that they're not assignable. So it's, if the entity that the agreement is with is no longer, then it's a surrender, and it's the municipality's,
Right, okay.
as it always has been, it's the municipality's land. So there's no act that governs that. Council's already made that determination. This council, to be clear, has made that determination.
So is what's on the screen, if someone's willing to make it, and then if we continued on, we can go back at any time, but if we went on to 13.1, you'll see on the red line copy the addition of the blue. And so I believe C is what was in question. A purchaser shall not sell, transfer, or otherwise dispose of all or any portion of MDT lands within 5 years of the purchase. And what I'm hearing is people are proposing 10 years. So we would like to add that to our list. And that will eliminate that quick speculative buying and selling. Okay, was there any other points that you wanted administration to consider for bringing back to council? It will be our work that gets brought back. There's not much time. The agenda is being reviewed tomorrow or later today, actually, maybe.
On D,
Okay, sorry, D of what number?
well, we were on C and just moving
Okay,
on to
on
D.
13.1, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Is that also for 10 years? Do we want to put a timeline on that? Like I'm just tossing that idea through my head, because otherwise it could be indefinite, right?
Right, you're saying it right, even though it's subsequent to C, it's not clearly defined,
That's right.
okay? So then that would be for 10 years to purchase MD land. Good catch, Ernie.
Sometimes I think.
All the time. Okay, we'll just wait for that. Just when you're ready, you can put it up and then someone can have a look and decide. C and D. Okay.
So B is an addition, as is C, is that correct? So I'll give you, do you need this in a motion then? Or do we
Yes.
just need to agree to this?
No,
So I will move that.
go look at the top. They have given you.
Oh, there we go. That the draft sale of MDT lands policy be referred to council for further discussion and consideration, and further that the following amendments be incorporated into the draft policy. A, where a sale is initiated by a leaseholder, the leaseholder be offered the appraised value in accordance with the current policy, the current draft policy, and where the current leaseholder sells the lease to subsequent leaseholders, would only be able to purchase the land through a competitive bid process, utilizing appraisals to fix the floor price. And C, the purchaser shall not sell, transfer, or otherwise dispose of all or any portion of MDT lands within 10 years of the purchase. And D, that the MD shall retain the right of first refusal to purchase MDT lands at the original sale price for a period of 10 years from a competitive sale, said sale, plus interest at a prime rate set by the Bank of Canada.
And by competitive, he meant completion.
That's what I said.
Okay. Completion. He's good with the wording.
So those would be separate motions at council when we actually discuss those ABC,
So-
whatever those things.
So, Counselor Tory, no, right now they're moved as one. So if we would want to move each of these amendments separately, I mean, the motion's been read in already, but there still is time to discuss or amend once we get to council. But right now, these motions would make up the new draft policy for council discussion.
I'm just thinking that maybe we want to, I just haven't thought about it. I'm totally happy to just stop, a quick flip speculation, but if we go from 5 to 10 years, we might actually reduce the price that we get for this land. And so I'm just thinking this through, if we're trying, anyway, I just don't, because I'm fine with the 10 years of security for the DMD. This is like, I don't know that I'm as comfortable with all three of them as a whole, but I'm not opposed to any of them actually. It's just like, but can we, when we come to council meeting, we can talk about them separately. We might learn something, and we might learn something between now and then that helps to, anyway, I'm just not sure we want to accept them all as a block. I'm not sure, just throwing that out.
Yeah, so an absolutely fair comment, because just like anything, when we see that, when we're making these motions at the time of, for myself, I need time to reflect and contemplate. And so that's why it's nice to be able to make these at committee of the whole and go to council for further discussion, because I agree, I suspect people won't be as quick to buy and sell land if we do it in 10 years, but I can live with 5 as well. But I also think this gives us a starting point to start our council discussion. And maybe it won't be finalized even at the council meeting, but I just know we have people waiting in the wings wanting to buy their lease. That is not who I'm bowing down to. But I do think this sales policy is an important part of our overall grazing and cultivated land policy. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, Lane's gonna go first, then you. Oh, and Ernie, sorry.
So mine's just one minor one under our letter D. I just think that we need to insert accrued interest at the prime rate of Canada, prime rate set by the Bank of Canada, plus accrued interest. So just that there's no question as to how we calculate that interest.
John, are you open to that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, David, then Ernie.
I just thought it would be nice when we go to council if we could talk about the three. I'm not sure how many got up there, but if they were discussed separately, I mean, maybe at the time it's easy to break them up. I just don't want to get tied into that we have to vote on them all as a block
No,
when
no,
we come to council.
so this would put forward the policy in draft format, and then you can discuss or move to amend any of the parts of it. I do prefer, and I'll just give you my 2 bits. I do prefer to see a clean policy before we do the final vote. So I'm just saying it might not be ready at this next council meeting. We've got to give ourselves enough time. As former Reeve Ruin said to me, lands will be the biggest thing you deal with ever on MD of Tabor Council. So make sure you get it right. So we don't want to rush anything.
I'm looking at C and I'm saying a purchaser. And I'm thinking, well, what happens if that purchaser passes away within that 10-year time limit? Maybe we should put owner instead of a purchaser. Yeah, I'm throwing that out there. I'm not set on one way or another.
So I'm not a lawyer, but would it refer to the estate then? Like once someone passes away,
Yeah,
then wouldn't it just defer, like, there's certain, I don't know, maybe administration knows better.
I don't know. I was just looking at it and the idea went through my mind. What if the purchaser passes away? And that's entirely possible. And maybe we just need to change the wordage on that. But Lane, you're saying we don't need to? I'm fine with that.
From an enforcement perspective, I just envision an interest being registered on land title and it runs with the land and we carry
Okay.
on with life.
So I'm just trying to think through this. There's a motion on the floor. So David, we could spend some time right now debating number D if you wanted. Okay, I'm seeing, yeah, refer to council. Okay,
Yeah, I just don't think I know enough about it. I just want some time, and I think the way you've explained it to me, it'll work out great. So I'm fine with the motion. Yep,
all right.
perfect.
Okay, so the motion has been read in. It is on the screen before you. Is there any further comments from council or questions from council or a comment from administration? Looking to Arliss.
Bryce, anything you want to clarify? Or?
Just wait, I wanna.
Just with regards to the reserve bid or the averaging of 2 appraised values, once that process is been accepted, that would be essentially establishing that price. Just wanted to make sure that's clear, and there's nothing in the policy that allows council or the municipality an opportunity for discretion on that appraised value as part of the sale. So that is the appraised value that would go forward with right through to the end. Just to be clear on that. So.
I suspect you're raising that question because you have a concern.
Just from the process perspective, that we're accepting appraised value as market value, the two appraised values, just for clarification, to make sure that's clear, that there is no discretion for the municipality. If those appraised values, if, you know, they will determine the reserve price for that, just to make sure council or committee is really clear on that.
That's how the policy reads.
That's how I see it.
And I think that's what we want. Yeah, I don't think we want council to have enough authority to do it. If we have decided that it's just, you know, that it's extra land that we don't need and we decide to allow the sale, I don't think we have enough knowledge as a council to set price. That's why we bring in professionals.
Thank you. Councillor Takeda?
I just have one suggestion of change. I read it in this way, but where the sales initiated by the leaseholder be offered the appraised value in accordance with the current draft policy. The current policy doesn't have that. Well, actually, we don't have one.
Okay.
Hey, council, are you okay with Councillor Takeda making, it's his motion, but, okay. So you probably heard that, Councillor Tory. Okay. Any comments or questions from council? Are you ready for the vote? Those in favor?
In favor?
That motion is passed. Okay. Number 7, the drainage approval policy.
So this policy is just part of the regular policy review process. We're bringing to council for discussion, explanation, and potential feedback as usual. 2011 was the last time this went through a more serious consideration or discussion, and I'll have our Director of Municipal Operations, who actually has prepared what's presented before committee today, walk us through those changes.
Thanks, Arliss. Yeah, so the policy that's in front of you right now is the clean version. I'll just go through some of the red line stuff. I didn't include the red line just because there was a lot of red. So we removed the private field approaches because that used to be in the policy to speak about unauthorized or building private approaches. We currently have that under our approach permit, so I didn't feel that it was appropriate to have it in the drainage policy. When approaches are applied for, we deal with the drainage in the immediate area of that approach under that permit. So the other thing that was removed was it used to state who our approved contractors are. We just reference the approved contractors list now. So that this policy doesn't have to get changed every time a contractor is added or removed. And it also had the application form attached to the policy, so we removed that as well. The minor edits were just some grammar errors and stuff. So
Okay, council, do you have any questions or concerns with the proposed policy?
I move that it be referred to council.
Thank you. Deputy Reeve Johnson recommends that the drainage approval policy be referred to council. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Out of curiosity, then, is the approved contractor list available for the public when they come to make
Yep.
these type of applications?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
It's online, yeah.
7.2 landfill hours policy.
So we're proposing to remove this policy. The old policy reads as a council motion. And then we also feel that the hours of operation are just operational.
Go ahead.
I can move that committee of the whole recommend the removal of the landfill sites hours of operation policy to council for consideration and approval.
Any questions or comments on this policy? Call the vote. Those in favor?
In favor.
Motion is passed.
And the next one is a rental and service agreement form. Like the title says, it's a form, not a policy. It was attached or to the Hamlet Recreation Maintenance Policy, which was also removed from the policy list. So we're just proposing that this one gets removed.
John?
I can give you the motion that the committee of the whole recommend the removal of the rental and service agreement form to council for consideration and approval.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the read-in motion? I'll call the vote. Those in favor?
In favor.
That motion is carried. Moving on to procedure bylaw number 203.
Yeah, so administration has, specifically our legislative and corporate affairs officers, put a lot of research into putting some ideas together in a newly proposed procedural bylaw in an effort to both be more clear in the context of our procedural matters that happen at council and sometime committee meetings, as well as an effort to actually streamline's a cliche word, but try to move through our council meetings in a decent manner from a timeline perspective. So I'll let her speak to this in more detail.
Yeah, so the last time this bylaw was revised was in 2022. The draft before you considers MGA requirements, current practices at the MD of Tabor, and common practices from neighboring municipalities. So the most notable changes as referenced in the memo are modernized structure and language, so just simplifying the procedural bylaw, condensing it into less pages. Electric participation, which the MGA does allow for. The delegation process, which has changed, so referencing the template that is being proposed, the call for people to speak specifically has been removed. And those that wish to speak and present in front of council will be required to submit a delegation request through the electronic means that's provided. Public hearings are also referenced now that we have a procedure and conduct bylaw that designates specific to public hearings and how they are conducted. It simply references that bylaw rather than, just so there's no conflicting and contradictory wording there. Minutes, there's also been a change to minutes. Once minutes are approved and a resolution is passed by council, the authority is given to administration to add the Reeves signature digitally to that. So she doesn't have to physically sign, he or she doesn't have to physically sign. Notice of motion. There was a notice of motion section in the current bylaw. It's somewhat vague, so this has been outlined a little bit more specifically of how that process takes place. And it's also noted that a specific procedure of how to initiate a notice of motion is underway, and training would be provided to council on what that looks like. Communication with litigants. So this section outlines how council is expected to communicate with litigants or potential litigants, not only in council chambers, but outside of council chambers. Simply that's done through legal counsel. And then interpretation and application. Essentially, this is saying that council has the ability to make decisions. I don't want to use override, that's the wrong word, but to help navigate procedural processes within the bylaw, with the exception of a few. And we can review that section specifically if you want to look at what those are. But those are the most notable changes within the bylaw. And it's before you for if you have any questions or want to review it. Maybe if you want to review it line by line, I'm not sure how you want to do that, but it's before you for consideration.
One formatting proposal, I guess, depending on where committee of the whole lands from a recommendation perspective, that we would likely consider is there's a templated agenda within the body of the bylaw. We would probably, from a formatting perspective, refer to an appendix or a schedule, and then reference that templated agenda in the schedule of the bylaw. Okay, just a formatting point. With respect to the last piece that Lace just referenced, interpretation and application, that there is an effort to again, this is very much, I'll own this one. This is very much my perspective in an effort to make council meetings hopefully smooth, flow more smoothly, is to legitimately throw Robert's Rules of Order out the window. And if you need to just establish a procedural matter, either through consensus or resolution, you just deal with it as the horseshoe. Whether you do it through consensus, great. If you can't get consensus, then you vote on it and you move on. The alternative would be, and you can, I guess, whack me across the head for sounding like a bureaucrat, but the alternative would be if we want a parliamentarian on staff, then we'll have to make that investment. The key desire and outcome as a result of our council meetings is to have clear, concise council direction, which comes through resolution, bylaws, and policy adopted by resolution. So that's the desired outcome with what we're doing from a governance perspective. The notice of motion piece, it would probably be worth reviewing unless you guys have already that specific piece within the bylaw, because this is just a summary. There will be a procedure following this that will support council in and with that process. And then the other piece to reference, as Lace did, would be that interpretation and application is that while it's intended to be flexible, there are specific rigidities as well. Again, in the name of trying to have the meetings flow through and respect people's time. And when I say respect people's time, I'm talking about the public that actually come to speak, scheduling delegations. So that first section would be the interpretation and application. So again, section 3, where it references council having the opportunity to alter any provision of this bylaw by resolution, except, so the first sentence there is to provide flexibility throughout, then it provides the exceptions where there is not flexibility. If the bylaw is to be passed, I should clarify. The first being this provisions about delegations. Those that want to present and engage with council as a delegation are expected to follow the process. And the process is the process. The provisions about statutory hearings, that makes sense. We're not gonna Wild West how statutory hearings are supposed to happen. Provisions about communications with litigants. If we start, I'm going to use that phrase a lot. It'll probably get a little bit annoying. But if we start to Wild West and be casual about how we communicate with litigants, it just exposes the municipality to more and more risk. So that's why it's included as an exclusion here to give ultimately council the tools and expectation of how to communicate with litigants, both in the chambers, litigants and or potential litigants, both in the chambers and outside. Again, to mitigate risk, not only for the organization, but for you as individuals. And then the other exclusion would be D, provisions for amending or repealing this bylaw. The MGA sets out the process for that, so we can't necessarily adjust that via resolutions during a council meeting. We'd have to follow a bylaw amendment process or the bylaw passing process outlined in the MGA. And section E, matters pertaining to provincial legislation, which is pretty self-explanatory.
Councillor
So with potential future litigants, will we always know who's litigating against the MD of Tabor? Will that be disseminated to us so that we know who not to engage with should we encounter them somewhere? So, because sometimes litigation takes place without our knowledge, and that's fine. It's an administrative task in a lot of cases. So it'd be important for us to understand who's litigating against us at any given time.
Yeah, for sure. Council will know as soon as it's practicable. And I believe there's also legislation there that requires me to make council aware of those types of scenarios, just as it relates to natural person powers. But it is litigants and potential litigants. So if there's threat of and written threat of, that's a risk. That's a risk to the municipality. To speak more clearly to that, though, Councillor Tricado, the bylaw contemplates an automatic referral to the chief administrator, to the CAO, if you're unsure.
So council, there is some significant changes that we haven't had before, or more so they've been highlighted. So if you have questions, I'm happy to go through it item by line. I have a few questions that I wanted to bring forward, but for anybody else, if you have questions or comments, this is the time.
I definitely have questions whenever you want to fit me in.
Yeah, you can lead us off, David.
I was a little bit tired as I read through this last night, but it was very helpful. The hard part this is the first time I didn't read the old one, and I apologize. I've been on council long enough that I should have. But it was very nice to read through it. So I don't know everything that's new. I guess part of the problem, but you've highlighted those mostly in this meeting today. I'm one of the things that I wanted to do when I came on to council was to make sure that I was listening to people. And so I'm hesitant to remove the ability for people to come last minute, because some things are just time sensitive. Some things happen last minute and people want to be able to speak their mind. Certainly the people coming to the mic has been one of the most painful parts of being on council. So I get why we don't want it, but I don't want, so I'm totally open to the discussion and the debate, but I want to be seen as an MD that we listen to people. That's who we represent. And so I mean, obviously they could set up a delegation and all those things, but some things are just all of a sudden, and I would hate for our citizens not to feel like they could speak. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that one first before I go on?
I can provide administrative perspective.
Sure. I'll give you my question that lines up with that. Is there other municipality, like I've tried to look at about 6 different bylaws that, or procedural bylaws and their agendas that don't have it. So I just wondered if that was your consensus.
Yeah, okay, so I will answer that.
Okay.
The administrative perspective to Councilor Tory's, I guess, questions or concern is that there is a process. People will still be able to access. It's planning, I guess, 7 days in advance, which is not necessarily non-standard. It's actually pretty quick. But it also provides for transparency to be able to actually put things into writing or into a form that's presentable for actual meaningful discussion and conversation. I want to make clear, it's not, what's being proposed from a change perspective isn't to stop people from coming. It's to provide a clear process whereby they can follow that. And then just again, based on our observations, it's difficult to schedule. So I mean, we can't be perfect in our scheduling for council meetings, but it's difficult to respect the time of those that actually go through the time and effort of planning a delegation. And then when you come to a council meeting, you have no idea, well, whether you have an idea or you don't have an idea, that could be very much impacted by things that were presenters that were unanticipated, right? And that's not overly respectful to those that took the time to follow the process that council had previously established in the bylaw. To answer your research question, the question about neighboring municipalities or other municipalities, specific to the call for people to speak, I'll let Lace answer that. She did the research.
Yeah, so I can't say I researched every municipality in the province, but I did not find, the ones that I did research did not have an option for, on their agenda for a call to people to speak or something similar in that nature. Or just an open, yeah, that wasn't common. It wasn't found, actually. I didn't find one. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but in the ones I researched, they weren't there.
Does county and Newell do that? And like, I'm just, because if it's not a thing, it's kind of painful and random, that's for sure.
I don't think it's a message of not listening to people though. It's outlining the process whereby they can be heard. Sorry, I jumped in before you.
Specific to the county of Newell, no, they do provide for it. It's been my experience in a number of municipalities when things are going well, this is never an issue because people have better things to do with their time and they don't come in and make presentations to council. It's when things are a concern and people feel a need to make sure that they're being understood that these requests come forward the way they have been. And I understand why there's a need for us to look at changing the way the structure of the meetings has been handled in the past. It's just, it's difficult to find that delicate balance between providing opportunities for the members of the public to come in and engage with council and not disrupt the flow of the meeting and the agenda that has been prepared. One other question I've got, I know Reed Mianaga has stated during the last meeting that she was hoping to have more structure around the making of motions, and I'm hoping that this would lead in that direction and address the concern that she had raised as well.
Is that specific to like the unanticipated motions? Like, yeah. Some of the same principles are, from a governance perspective, some of the same principles are live, specific to unanticipated resolutions as well as unanticipated presentations. Sometimes one leads to the other. So
We have living proof of that on this council.
but I want to be clear, the delegation process by and large is the same as it was before. People have just learned that there was a blow-by. Why schedule it? Why schedule it when you don't have to? You can just show up.
But to be fair, some of the ones, even the ones that were very against the things that I was trying to push, I don't think they even have the 7 days, right? Like, I just respect that they, maybe they could have or should have, but it became urgent less than 7 days before. I just don't want people to feel like we're not. Anyway, but I get the point. I mean, I totally understand. Obviously, we're living it, but it is a democracy, and I just want to make sure that people don't feel like we're restricting the policies too much, that everything just gets slowed down and mired in procedure rather than dealing with things as they come. I mean, I have a little bit of a concern with the motions as well, but I like that at least there's an opportunity. If 5 out of the 7 of us want to do something last minute, the flexibility isn't completely taken out of the policy. So I appreciate that. If we need to get stuff done that was important, I just want to make sure that we don't bog things down. But I do respect that we do want order, and we want to make decisions based off of good information, not knee-jerk reactions. So no, it's been very good for me to read through it all. So thank you.
John?
So I'm noticing that the notice of motion is a 2-week previous to the meeting, yet the presentation for delegation is only 1 week. And I'm wondering if most municipalities are seeing that difference, or would it be beneficial to have them both at the same time frame?
So
Yeah, that's something we could receive feedback on. I think it's more so probably a time frame of, I think it's 14 it shows right now, right?
yeah, 14 days.
Maybe like a time frame of 10 days might be more reasonable, because you give notice of motion at a council meeting. That means within 3 or 4 days, then you actually get the notice of motion for the agenda of the next council meeting, right? Which is generally 2 weeks away.
Go ahead.
So, but is there a way similar to what is available to the public at doing that electronically? So should you decide a week out that you have, something's come up and you want to provide a notice of motion as a counselor, shouldn't you have the same opportunity as a delegation? I guess that's just a question.
I guess I'm looking for more clarity on what you're asking. That's my issue.
So if something comes up between meetings, a delegation can provide submission and be on the next agenda with a 7-day advanced reporting. So I'm wondering if the same timeframe should be allowed for counselors to provide a written submission of a possible notice of motion 7 days prior to the meeting.
Okay, so that's not the way I've seen it implemented, generally speaking, in other municipalities. Notice of motion is provided at a council meeting ahead of when the motion comes to that meeting.
Yeah.
So it is like a 2-week, you're playing with a 2-week generally speaking, a 2-week window between council meetings.
But it could be much longer than that in the summer, where we have maybe sometimes only one meeting per month. So it could be, 45 days, or it could be extended period of time. So that's my concern, is that. Because currently we have no notice of motion. And I'm not saying that's correct either, but I think there is a way of providing more flexibility.
Yeah, I'm still struggling to understand exactly where you're coming from. I can understand where there's a larger distance between council meetings sometimes, or a time frame between council meetings. That doesn't mean that the time frame wouldn't be met. It would just be exceeded. Like, you would still meet the timeline, it'd just take longer. The other alternative is to try doing something, and then if we need to tweak it, we tweak it. Like, tough to give you a perfect forecast of what the outcomes will be, but
Yes, go ahead.
I'm ready to move that we refer it to council.
I have a couple questions, if we could.
Okay, I'll hold on.
Okay, and just on the note, County of Newell is the one of the few places that I actually saw had regular procedures for question period at 10:30 on their agenda. And that's the only place that I've seen it, and that's only from their website, so I don't know if that's up to date or not.
It is, but like I stated, it has never happened.
Right,
We never have,
I guess.
there's never questions
I
raised.
guess what my comment to that, because I align with Councillor Tory on it, that sometimes, and we've had it in this chambers, not with this council, but we had someone come and thank the fire department for their service, and they wanted it on the record. Now, they could have wrote a letter, they could have made a delegation, but it's set out for a certain time. So I'm not sure I'm ready to throw that out, Councillor Tory, but the difference is 3 to 5 minutes in Newell's, and that they have a limit of what kind of questions can be asked, whether they do not have to be answered, and the chair can withdraw the speaking rights. And there also is a council question period submission form, so you actually don't even have to be there. You could submit that. I'm just giving you an example from what I researched out there as well, because I like the idea of a delegation form, but I also worried that sometimes there's some urgency, but that gets municipalities into trouble. So I'm not quite 100% on that. So a couple things that I had, I was okay with the 5 o'clock adjournment because that is important. I'm on, and if when this bylaw is done, if it could be page numbered, and maybe that's not a problem, but for me it is. Now I'm on page 1, 2, 3, 4, number 28.
so section 28.
Yeah, section 28.
Yeah, we can go to that.
If we can just go to there.
We can go to that number.
Yeah, and so my question on the electronic communication, does the counselor need to advise council or the CEO if they're going to be on electronically? Or can they just show up? And that, I just find it is nice to know, and, today, a counselor let me know they weren't going to be available, and then let the administration know that they were going to be online. It doesn't matter to me who knows, but it is nice to know, like, was someone tied up in traffic, or, are we texting them? Are they coming, right? I wonder if there isn't some obligation on a counselor to advise their attendance. And I realize there's a quorum question before that if we don't have quorum, then those names are recorded and we carry on. But it's just a question.
Yeah, so
No, that's a good question. I think if we have a policy, I would love to follow it. I just also let Lace know, but yeah, if there's a better way, I would be happy to do it. I agree.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, it doesn't matter to me who knows, just someone should know.
yeah, so
So could we add something to that effect that,
if that's what you want, for sure. If that's what council
Yeah,
is up
so-
wanting, yeah.
that would be one thing I would like added somewhere in that section. Counselor should advise of their electronic attendance. Now, if they're absent, I don't think that's up to them, but it is nice to know. I'd like to say they should advise, but I realize life happens. We would still reach out and text and call. So that would be one thing. I get a little bit nervous with number 32, that to each member of council by Friday, on the Friday preceding the meeting. I've seen where we've had this, and what ends up happening is it's at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock on Friday, and our staff is working fervently on a Friday to finish. I get it, once it's out, and we've had criticism from the public that your agenda's not out soon enough. So I'm reluctant to a Friday at noon. I mean, some of the other agendas are a week ahead. I think that's too far. We haven't ever shifted that much, but I do wonder about a Wednesday or a Thursday timeframe, but I'm looking to other members of council, and it's not when you're gonna read the agenda, it's when you know that it's out. And that's on number 32. But if no one else cares, then I'll. John?
I would agree with having it earlier. I don't know how administration feels, but the reason being, we have a regular meeting on a Tuesday and it's Friday at noon and it happens to be a long weekend and you're leaving with the family at noon, you might not have an opportunity to review the agenda as a counselor. And so and I know it's our responsibility to do that, but having a day earlier to be able to review it would be very helpful.
I think it takes a Friday pressure off staff as well. That was why we moved it back.
Hey,
Murray?
if council wants.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
I'll go Murray, then
I would,
David.
Yeah, I think previously wasn't it out on a Thursday or whatever, not a Friday, but that would probably be better.
We'll go David, then Lace. Did you have something you want to add, Lace?
I was just gonna say, I just have so little experience with it, but I was definitely hoping that we could get the ones, and all three of you have spoken, that were on here before, like, we've never seen anything different, so we don't know what the other options are, and if Thursday would work better, I'm all for that. As long as that works for Carlos and his team, right?
Arliss and Lace,
Yeah.
did you have something?
We'll make it work. Make anything work. One thing from a foreshadow perspective is I think we will, well, not I think, within the May, I think, if it's ready, committee of the whole will be proposing a replacement committee bylaw in place of committee of the whole. It will greatly reduce the number of times committee of the whole meets. When you're pumping out agendas almost weekly,
I agree.
multiple agendas weekly, this becomes difficult, so.
Yeah, I'll be looking for,
And
Go ahead.
Administration is probably more guilty than council of working on agenda items to get it into the council meeting, right? Which then sometimes delays the agenda coming out, or not delay when there is no really set deadline, there's no delay, but makes it feel delayed coming out to council. But council is also gonna have to respect that as well, that a last minute, or there's gonna be a cutoff deadline for agenda items to be on council meetings,
yeah, I
so.
don't think we're unreasonable. Lane?
I guess 3 points. One, just going back to the whole issue of delegations and providing an opportunity for people to come in and address council. It's my experience that in many times the request for that, or not even the request, just people coming in and taking advantage of the fact that we have that opportunity on the agenda. More often than not, it relates to the fact that the agenda is released. They have reviewed it. There is matters that are on the agenda that they feel they need to speak to. And if we have the requirement for a delegation to be made a full week in advance of the agenda being released, they're not even aware of what's on the agenda when they that far in advance. So that's what's driven many of the requests, or not requests, but the presentations that have come before council. With regards to the minutes themselves, one of the things that I would be in favor of, it would be nice if draft meeting minutes could be circulated when they are prepared and distributed, marked clearly as draft, not approved, so that there's no expectation that they are going to be approved by council in the form that they were circulated.
Distributed in the context of.
Released to the public, released to council, so that we don't have to wait until the next meeting to review the proceedings of the meeting that has just concluded. So as soon as they're available, they're distributed for review. What was the third one? Oh, coming back to the fact that the comment was just made about many agenda packages being cranked out by administration, and it's just an ongoing repetitive cycle. I still strongly feel that if there's interest that council has in reviewing how the committee structure is set up, there's opportunities to streamline that whole process, to cut down on the number of meetings overall, the number of days that council is required to be in here. It would make matters much easier for administration, and it would cut down on the number of times that council has to come into the MD office for a 1 or a 2 hour meeting. It would be far more efficient use of everyone's time all the way around. And when you're prepared to have that discussion, I would really encourage council to take a good hard look at what we're doing in the way the meeting processes and structure has worked in the past, and see if there's opportunities to make more efficient use of our time in the future.
A couple more. So council, would you like to have it pushed back then, or are you feeling Friday's fine?
I would propose a change to Thursday at noon myself.
Lane?
I'm okay with Friday. I would be interested how many members of council even start reading the agenda before the weekend.
So mine is not about council reading it. Mine is about the criticism that we don't even get your agenda until from the public. And then also, I just feel it, it's no different than, well, maybe other people are more disciplined than I am. Once it's Friday at noon, then it just pushes things further along. But I'm okay if people are good with Friday. It's just more of the public concern and staff demands on a Friday. Just,
I think as new councils, we don't know enough to comment. So if you guys think it should be Thursday, I definitely defer to your experience.
Murray?
Yeah, if it comes out Thursdays, I already start reading mine Thursdays, but if it comes out Friday at 6 o'clock or whatever, or 5 o'clock, well, it might not get read till Sunday night.
Yeah, I would propose Thursday at noon, but we'll see if people are willing. Lace, just a typo on number 36, the confirmation of minutes is in twice. I know that's just a,
We noted that yesterday.
yeah, no problem. Okay, and the delegation, I'm okay with that. So the other big change is that a motion can't be brought back unless it's significantly different in 6 months. So just think council should be made aware of that so that they're not going, well, what do you mean? And there's certain other implications that it can't be brought back.
And to be clear, that's not an administrative creation from,
No,
in an effort to impede democracy. That's pretty standard within the municipal.
it's very standard, but it wasn't practice in the MD of Tabor, and it should have been. I don't disagree. We've seen how why it's been necessary, but those are really those two things are my main concerns. The rest is good. So, I would propose that the bylaw number 2031 be referred to committee of the whole with the following amendments: that council should advise of their electronic attendance prior to the start of the meeting, and that the agendas be distributed Thursday at noon.
Just from a clarity perspective, are you hoping this come back to another committee of the whole, or could it
No,
come-
I'll refer to
come
council.
Yeah, okay, good.
When you have a second, I just said one comment.
Certainly. That, now that the motion is made, people can discuss further.
I just the 6 month thing, I think is a great idea in the normal term of things. But at the point of an election, that I wonder if there's going to be an exception, because we came in because and democracy, we want elections and democracy to be what drives and so if there's an election and 7 new councilors came in, which has happened in some of the municipalities, it would, it seems like you would need the flexibility to do some things without waiting 6 months. But I totally understand in the flow of things how this has got to be a thing. But anyway, I just think that part, if we restrict what's done after an election, it would certainly restrict what happens during an election, which is change.
Yeah, his reference to democracy could mean a lot of different things. So.
Oh, I do have one other question before I call for the vote. On number 63, and maybe this is in the MGA and I just don't know what they are. When a council member has been warned about breaches of order but continues to engage, the Reaver presiding officer may state their name and declare the offense. And what is the offense? Is it interruption, being rude? I just don't know what that
Section, sorry.
63. And one, so I can avoid it myself. I just wasn't sure,
Simple as being out of order.
just out of order, that they interrupted someone. That's all. Okay, and that's fine if it's just as basic as that. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't some list I was not knowing. Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. Is there any questions or comments to refer to council with those 2 proposed changes? Yes, Deputy Reeve.
Is there interest in including circulating draft minutes when they're prepared?
I'm all over that. But does that end up in the procedure bylaw?
It can't hurt being in the procedure bylaw. If that's what council wants, then
Okay, so
let's put
that
it in the
would,
bylaw. I prefer not having a timeline.
pardon?
I would prefer not having a timeline.
Yeah, I'm not saying a timeline, just when they're
Yeah.
prepared. So
When they're ready.
it's, the minutes section starts with Article 77. So if there's just a way to include another clause in that section that says that draft minutes of the meetings will be circulated when they're prepared.
And
Or
just
after they've been prepared.
Yeah, and just to provide clarity around why, it's just dependent on the council meeting, it might require more time.
Right.
Perfect example of that is organizational meeting or.
If council by consensus is willing, I'm willing to add that to my motion to, under minutes section, that draft minutes will be circulated when prepared, or available on the website when prepared. Like, doesn't have to be circulated. That's not really the right word for me. Whatever the word is.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you. Bless you. Okay, the motion reads that the Committee of the Whole recommend the draft procedure bylaw to council for consideration, and further that the following amendments be included. Members of council advise administration in advance if they will be attending a meeting electronically, and that council agenda be distributed by noon on Thursday, and draft minutes be made available to the public once prepared. Any further questions or comments on the motion?
Does it, did you want did you want it to be administration?
It
or-
doesn't matter to me, whatever the right, it doesn't matter if it's council or administration.
Advise. Yeah, that's how the bylaw reads.
Okay, whatever the, doesn't matter to me. So, David, just so that you know, on the first point, instead of administration, it says advise the reeve or presiding officer in advance.
Okay, I'll be electronic next week.
Sounds good.
So, I don't mean to complicate things, would it be better to include administration there as well? So that either one of those options would be available and satisfactory.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. It's just, it didn't matter to me who was advised. It's just so we're not, yeah, just, that's fine. Okay, so the motion is in front of you. Any further comments or questions? I will call the vote. Those in favor?
In favor.
That motion is passed. We've covered off everything except for the last item.
Just one
Oh, sorry.
comment.
Oh,
and
sorry.
It doesn't impact what's been passed already. It's more so just making a comment for contemplation, perhaps. And it's relevant to any bylaw, but as we implement, once this bylaw we just discussed receives all 3 readings and then becomes active, I just want to make it clear that if the CIO ends up following that bylaw, hopefully he does, and it feels uncomfortable or difficult or challenging, I just want to be clear and make the statement now that it's not any sort of intentional act done by administration from a perspective of an elected official to impact that elected official or the public. It's just simply following the legislation. Just making that clear. I don't know if I'll be here when it's passed, so I just wanted to make and share that. That perspective is that once council passes those bylaws, the expectation is for us to follow them.
Could I ask a question then on that?
Yep.
So because it's a bylaw, we're doing multiple readings. If we all are like thinking about this over, is that why we have multiple readings? But if there's one item in this bylaw that we want to discuss further, we can prior to a second or a third reading, or is that why there's 3 readings?
Yeah, oftentimes bylaws can be amended at the point of second reading or even at point of third reading, commonly at the second reading, but
Oh yeah, no, I just, that's great. And like I say, I'm right now, I'm pretty comfortable with everything, but we're all gonna have time to think about it now that we've talked about it. And so just trying to understand the procedure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from administration? Thank you for the work that was done to prepare for this agenda. There was lots of good information, ranging right from fire to economic development. So with that, a final motion. Oh, do you have something, Lace?
did you want to reference the AGM on
Oh,
Thursday?
jeepers
at all?
creepers. Okay, council, are you able to continue on so that we don't break for lunch? Yes. Yeah, okay, let's do the AGM. Sorry about that. And that was me who pushed for that. I just want to make sure people understand the format. I do see Arliss sent out a email on that with a draft presentation. So if you wanted, if you have any questions on the process or what else will be involved that night, just for some counselors, they've never been through an AGM. The traditional practice has been to have a long table in the front with counselors sat at it and a platform to speak from, and then the audience sitting in regular auditorium style seating. It's more formal, it feels, than a coffee with council. And our staff will lead a lot of the discussions, and it's an opportunity for the attendees to ask questions.
In the last few years, we've also been recording them and then putting them on the website for those that can't attend as well.
Do we have that ability?
That cannot attend.
Do-
That's the plan, to record, not live stream.
No,
but to
yes.
record, yeah.
Okay, so that's a nice option for people, then they can watch it or get an update, especially if if the weather turns, it might be okay. The meeting starts at 7. Usually the doors are open around 6:30, 6:15. So if you want to arrive a minute early before the residents come. Past practice has not been for counselors to have an opportunity to speak, but it's just been we've answered questions. And I'm happy to, when those questions come, any counselor is free to answer them. I just had a couple of questions from people on how the AGM would be structured, but just wanted to make sure if you had any other questions, this was on here. Yes, Deputy Reeve.
So there is no expectation that there's going to be information pertaining to the 2025 financial report or year-end?
No, they're not. They won't even be.
Yeah, there's
be
not,
before
nothing
council.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the history of annual information meetings usually has been that you focus on fiscal year that has passed. But this one is addressing more current matters, and that's fine.
Yeah. And last year they were actually ready just by happenstance. So they were presented last year. The year before last, they weren't reviewed. But you're right. Traditionally, I mean, there's no legislative requirement to be doing this. At one point, I think there was, but it's remnants of tradition. So
Yeah, many municipalities have done away with this altogether, but it's just another way of engaging with the public and being accountable.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I encourage you to refer to Arliss's email on the AGM, and then we'll look forward to having as many residents attend the Thursday meeting. Any other items? With that,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you.